Okay guys, time to get started. I'm Miss Julia and I'm here today with Anna. Anna, what pattern are we sewing today?
I picked out the Roxy skirt.
Awesome. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah.
Awesome. Alright, so we have our Roxy skirt pattern here. So if we want to take a look at it, if your cover doesn't say the Roxy skirt 8673, you might be watching the wrong video. But for our purposes here, we have our skirt pattern and we are looking at the front of our envelope. This is an intermediate pattern, and what that means is this is a pattern that's great for anybody that has some sewing machine experience. You don't need to be professional, but it is recommended if you've been on the sewing machine before, you're going to have great success. But if you have somebody to work with, you should do just fine. Let's take a look at all the supplies that we need. The first sheet you will find has some pictures and lines. This is the diagram of your sewing machine, and it's also your practice sewing sheets. These are going to be important for just getting yourself ready to sit down and start sewing. So we're going to put this off to the side. The directions actually begin on page 3. And you'll notice at the top here, make sure we can see that, at the top, that's your page number. So we have page 3 of 6 right here. So that means there's 6 sides of your guide sheets. When you flip it over, you're going to find 4 of 6. You come on over to your other sheet, 5 of 6, and you can probably guess when you flip it over, 6 of 6, right over here. Step 1, what is my size? Anna here will be making the Roxy skirt for herself, so we want to make sure we get the correct size so it's going to fit. I have around my neck a tape measure. Tape measures are nice and flimsy so they can go around your form. A regular ruler will not work for this section. So Anna, what we need to do is we're going to measure around your waist. To find your waist, people don't realize it's a little higher than most think. If you bend to the side, where you find the natural bend is where your waist, the natural waistline is. I'm going to take the tape measure, and this part when you need to measure, it's helpful to have somebody to do this with you, okay? So Anna, I'm going to bring this around your back, and then you can lift your arms up. It's also good to not be wearing bulky clothes because that might give you a reading that's too big. So we're going to go ahead and just gently tighten it up a little bit. We don't want it too tight or too loose. And Anna, we're going to measure you at about 27 inches. And what we're going to do is go to our back of our pattern envelope or in our guide sheets and find where we can match the measurement of your waist to the actual size. Here we are, step 3, cut your pattern tissue. Anna, we're going to unfold this pattern tissue. And I have to let you know, once you unfold it, it's very hard to get it back to the way it was. So just be prepared. It's going to become a large piece of pattern tissue, okay? So make sure your space is clear, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to open this up and see our pattern pieces. All right, we opened it up. You can see it has enlarged to this big piece of paper with these lines on it that might not make a lot of sense to you just yet. So we're going to talk through what these lines all mean on here. So I'm going to come over to number 1. We have the front of skirt. That is going to be the piece that you're going to cut out of your fabric. Let's find that on here. Here we are, front of skirt. And there's a lot of information talking about what is going to go into our front of skirt. So the first thing we want to look at are our sizes. We already measured Anna, so we know what size Anna will be, so that's the size we're going to need to cut. For you, you're going to need to find your size and make sure you're going to cut out that appropriate size. One important thing to remember about doing this is to understand these are nested pieces. You can see extra small in here, you can see small in here, you can see the medium in here, the large, and the extra large. So Anna, we're going to cut out a large because that's what you matched up to. So the large is going to correlate, meaning it's going to connect to the line right under the L, okay? If you're a medium, you're gonna cut the line that goes right under the medium. Okay, a good helpful hint when cutting out your patterns that are nested is to take your highlighter that we mentioned in the beginning, and we're going to just trace the line that we need to cut on. So Anna here is going to trace her highlighter right along the large. And now we have a really nice bright line to tell us exactly where we need to cut. When we're going to go to cut out our pattern tissue, what I like to do first is sort of disconnect it or cut it out of the big major piece of pattern tissue. So Anna, I'm going to just have you quickly cut around this piece here. That way it's a little easier to manage since our table doesn't even handle the whole entire piece of pattern tissue. We have now brought our back of skirt pattern piece over to the table. We have cut it out from the rest of the pattern tissue to make it a little easier to use. Anna also did a great job highlighting her cutting lines for the large, and she's going to go ahead and cut out her back of skirt. Okay, so Anna has cut out her back of skirt pattern piece, and we are on our third pattern piece and our final pattern piece, our casing. So Anna has also gone and highlighted her size on her cutting lines, and she's going to go ahead and cut out our casing piece. Okay, so Anna, we can go ahead and cut that out. Follow our lines. Nice job, Anna. You cut out all your pieces. We have our number 1 front of skirt all cut out. We have our number 2 back of skirt all cut out. And we have our number 3, our casing, all cut out. And what you might think is looking at these pattern pieces, they might look a little large. We don't want you guys to worry. This is so your skirt has ease. And ease is going to make sure you have enough room when wearing your skirt. And at the end, we're going to put elastic in there so your skirt will stay on. Okay? Step 6, pin your pattern tissue to your fabric. Anna's picked out some really cool fabric. We have it right over here. We have about 1.25 yards for her size, all measured out from the fabric store. And what we're going to do is make sure our fabric is properly placed and laid out on the table. So for us, if you look at our birds, they're kind of all going in a different direction. Some patterns might have the one-way print design, and if you have a one-way print design, you'll remember when we were talking about laying out our fabric earlier and learning about your fabric, that you need to make sure everything is going to go in the correct direction. For us, it doesn't really matter, so our fabric needs to be folded, and we talked about what the fold is. So our fold is down here. Let's make sure we can see that. Our fold is right down here, and our selvage is right at the top. And our cut edge will be on our right and left hand side. So there's our cut edge on the right and our cut edge on the left. There we go. To be able to successfully pin our pattern tissue, we need to make sure we have our pins and our 3 pattern pieces. And Anna has our 3 pattern pieces. We're going to find our number 1, our front of skirt. So Anna, if you want to go find that. Beautiful. You will see that there are some markings on our front of skirt pattern tissue. We have these arrows, and we talked about them going on the fold. So this is called the center fold. That means when we have our fabric now laid out, I'm going to put the top of our skirt towards the right cut edge, and the center fold, I'm going to put our little arrows onto the center fold. That way we can see it. And there it is, right against the center fold. And just give it yourself enough space to make sure you're going to have enough fabric underneath. So you don't necessarily want to come way over with your pattern piece. We're going to just leave that there for a moment. Just make sure we get all of our placement correctly laid out. We're going to take our casing piece, and that's going to come into the middle of our front of skirt and our back of skirt. Our casing piece has another set of arrows, If you remember, that's our straight grain line. And I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm going to try to hold it up here. You see our straight grain line arrow. There we go, Anna. You got it. Excellent. And that needs to be parallel with our lines, you know, directly straight from one another with the selvage edge. So that's going to go right here. You'll notice there is no center fold line, so it does not need to be on the fold. So we can leave it right here, not quite on the fold. And then we have to look at our back of skirt. I'm going to bring that over. Back of skirt looks very much like our front of skirt, and it's going to have our center fold arrows. And that's going to come right to the center fold against the fold of the fabric. Let's see if we can move that down a little bit. Sometimes I like to put the pin cushion on there for a little weight so our pieces do not fly away. There we are on the center fold. Our 3 pieces fit perfectly on our fabric. Yep. I think we're perfectly on our fabric, so now we need to attach it. So Anna, we're going to pin our pieces with our pins. I'm over here on front of skirt. I have my pin that Anna is handing me from the pin cushion, and I'm going to start by placing the sharp pin end into the top corner of our skirt just to start to lock it down. You're going to hold it, push it down, and we're going to run our pins parallel to our cut edges. So they're going to be kind of right next to the cut edge. Okay? This way, some people like the pin going out this way. You will have a hard time cutting if your pins are sticking out. Okay? So make sure they go parallel. I'm going to come right up to the corner. The idea behind pinning is just to temporarily hold the pattern tissue in place so that when you're cutting, it doesn't move. And it'll help make sure that your fabric is cut to the right size. We're going to bring this down. Bring this down. Still see it? So we're going to go all the way around our pattern piece. I'm going to bring that down. You can see we're getting our corner over here. Then we're going to bring the bottom edge. And we're going to do that to all 3 of our pieces. Okay? All right, we now have our 3 pieces nicely pinned down. And we're going to just take a look. But you want to make sure that all your pins have actually gone through your layers of fabric. So you'll see that they will show up on the other side. If you don't see the pins on the other side, that means they're not fully attached and you want to go back and do that. Okay, so Anna, I think we are ready to cut our fabric out.
All right, I'm ready to cut.
Step 7 is getting ready to cut. But we have to hang on because everything in sewing obviously needs a little prep beforehand. So, Anna, we're going to go on a notch hunt. On your pattern tissue, you will see that there are these funny little triangular shapes, as you can see around here. And they're going to be important for helping us to know how to line things up. Kind of like puzzle pieces, they need to like fit together or match. Okay? So, Anna, let's see. Let's start with our front of skirt. And let's see if we can find a notch. I always think of it as like a nacho.
Yeah.
It's not a nacho, but it's a triangular shape. And I sometimes like to mark them. They're pretty easy to miss. So I'm just taking my pen, and if you want, we actually bring the notch out. I make like another triangle. It almost looks like a diamond. And that way you might be able to see that a little easier. You can use your highlighter too and just highlight the notch as well if you're finding that you don't want to draw on the fabric. Okay? So Anna, why don't you go around and let's see if we can highlight some of our notches around here. So it looks like our front of skirt is okay. I'm going to bring out, oh, we have quite a few on our casing. There we go. The top of it. Great. So let's see, we have, you want to make sure, like our little scavenger hunt, we have 1. Oh, we missed one, Anna. We missed one, a sneaky guy right up here. All right, 1, 2 on our front of skirt. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on our center, or our casing piece. And let's see about our back of skirt. 1, 2, oh, The other sneaky guy. Go ahead. So that's why it's always nice to have a second person working with you to help you catch all the notches. All right, since we found our notches, we are going to now get ready to cut out our fabric. The first thing I like to do, just like with our pattern tissue, is make sure it's a little easier for us to cut. So we're going to actually take these pieces apart. So we're just going to do big cuts. We're just separating the pieces. We now have 3 separate pieces so that we can easily move our fabric around when we need to. So I'm going to just put the casing on top of our back piece and let's focus on our front of skirt. Okay. I'm a righty, so it's nice and easy for me to go ahead and start cutting on my right hand side. So we're going to cut right from the fold at the bottom here. And Anna, I'm going to show you how we're going to get to this notch, okay? So I'm going to just kind of slowly work my way over to the notch. I'm going to stop right at that line. I'm going to come up and then back down. And it's going to make that little triangle shape. We don't like to cut into our notch, so we don't cut the actual fabric we need to use. This is the reason why we recommend cutting our notch out from, cutting it out away from our pattern tissue, okay? Once we got our notch, we're going to continue our way across the top. So you can see that we have pretty closely cut on the line. We're going to bring it down over here. And we're going to continue down the side of our skirt. We're going to get to that notch again. Come out. Back in. Don't worry if you accidentally cut into your pattern tissue. It's going to be okay. You just don't want to make, big cuts. If you end up making a big cut, a piece of Scotch tape will be able to fix it right up. I'm going to bring this back down. And I'm actually just going to take this piece completely off to make it a little easier. And remove that. I'm going to turn it so that I can have it on my right hand side again. We're going to come across the bottom here. And what's nice about this, we don't have to worry about any notches. Put that down. All right. And if you remember, our fold does not need to be cut because what we want to do is open our skirt up when we're done, and you're going to get a much larger piece so that we can wear our skirt comfortably. Okay, so we have just cut out our front of skirt, and we're going to go ahead and get to our back of skirt and our casing. We have our Janome sitting out here today, and over here on our dials, we have our stitch length dial, and we need to make sure it's on 2.5. Our machine does not have a 2.5, it has a 2 and a 3. So we're going to go ahead and turn it right in the middle of our 2 and our 3, and that's going to be the stitch length, and we're going to make sure we're on a straight stitch. So I'm going to look at my menu, I see A and B are straight stitches. My A is the needle position, so I'm going to make sure I'm in the center needle position. So I'm going to turn my stitch selector to A. So there we are, and we're set up. And the last thing we need to think about in getting our machine ready for sewing, we have Anna over here who's going to rip me off a piece of tape, maybe about 2 or 3 inches. Again, doesn't need to be exact, doesn't need to cover the whole sewing machine. And we're going to use a piece of painter's tape. And this is a great tape, again, because it's not sticky. And we're going to make sure it's going to go on our 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch seam guide. So we're going to go ahead and look at our seam guide on the plate over here. You'll see that there are numbers. It's basically a ruler. And it's telling us the inches or the 1/2 inches, the millimeters along the edges. We're going to find the 1/2 inch mark. So I'm going to just bring my head over there. There we go. We have a 1/2 inch right here. That's the line. The tape is going to allow us to have a really nice big blue line to show us where our fabric is going to need to be positioned. So there it is. There is our seam guide. I'm going to take a piece of scrap fabric. This is just some extra fabric left over from cutting before. And I'm going to set this up underneath our presser foot over here. The way we're going to use our seam guide is the edge of the fabric needs to be against the edge of our tape, and that's going to give us a 1/2 inch difference between when we sew to the edge of the fabric. So if I'm way over here, that is definitely not a 1/2 inch seam allowance anymore. We're going to need to bring it way back, and let's say we go over here. Does that look right, Anna?
No.
No. So we are going to push it back to the edge, and we're really, when I sew, I am looking at the edge of my tape and the edge of my fabric to make sure I'm staying straight, just to give you guys a little visual on that. So let's go ahead. It's always a great best practice to give your machine a little test run to make sure everything is working properly. So I have my fabric under here. I'm going to put our presser foot lever down to hold our fabric in place. I'm going to turn my needle so it's in the fabric, making sure it's in the right spot. I'm going to go ahead and step on the pedal and let's turn the electricity on first. There we go. Ah, light. We're going to take it for a drive. Come right off of our fabric here. So I try to accomplish 2 things by doing this. What I have done is make sure my stitches look like they are proper. So if they look loopy or extra tight, or your machine is making weird noises, so if it's clunking along, that means something's up. So stop what you're doing and check your machine. And I'm also making sure my seam allowance looks good. And I'm pretty even across the board. So I think we are now ready to begin sewing our actual project. Step 9, get ready to sew. We're going to do a few more things so we can get our skirt pieces onto the sewing machine. So Anna, I have my front of skirt, back of skirt, weight casing. We're going to label each piece. So I want you just take one pattern piece at a time. I'm going to have you unpin it. So this is when we're going to remove the pattern tissue. So let's start unpinning it. Okay, so we have unpinned almost a few more pieces. I'm going to have Anna put that back in the pin cushion. We're going to remove the pattern tissue. But before I unfold my skirt, because it is folded, right here at the top, you can see there are 2 notches, and I am going to place a pin vertically on that fold. So you can kind of, if you want to open it up, you can still usually see that crease of the fold. You see our little crease right there, our 2 notches. I'm going to take the pin right here, and I'm going to place it vertically, and that's going to help mark where we are going to be placing some things. Okay, so Anna, before we move on to our next piece, I would like you to rip off 4 pieces of tape. So Anna has grabbed the painter's tape, and about maybe 3 inches in length. Doesn't need to be exact. And we're going to write on the piece of tape, front of skirt. This is going to remind you that this is the front of skirt without having your pattern tissue attached to your fabric. Anna has ripped off 4 pieces of tape. She's going to take 1 piece of tape, and right in the middle, you're going to go ahead and place it on your skirt and write on that with a marker or a pen, front of skirt. All right, Anna has labeled our front of skirt. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. And Anna, you can go ahead and grab the back of skirt. And we're going to unpin that. I like to do this 1 piece at a time so you do not get confused. And I'm going to have you, I'll take these pins, I'm going to have you open up the skirt, and we're going to do the same thing with the pin. We're going to go ahead and place it between the 2 notches at the top of your skirt, right on the crease. Let's bring that over here. There's our little crease, and our 2 notches almost look like teeth, kind of sticking out. Vertically place my pin. There she is. We're going to label this guy up. So Anna already ripped off our tape. And she can go ahead, and you guys can probably guess. We're going to label it back of skirt. And Anna, we can go ahead and grab our casing pieces. All right, unpin. So Anna has unpinned her casing, the pattern tissue from the casing fabric. And when you pull them apart, Anna, you can go ahead. You get 2 pieces. Voila. Excellent. So Anna, I'm going to have you take the last 2 pieces of tape, place them on your fabric, and label it casing. Great, so Anna has her 2 casing pieces labeled. So we're going to set that off to the side. Now you have all your pattern tissue that is not on your fabric anymore. My recommendation is not to crumple it up and throw it out. It's still good. Anna kept it in really good condition. You can fold it up and put it back in your pattern envelope and you can use it again. Okay, and we're going to get ready to move on to the next step. Step 10, learning to stay stitch. So this might be a term that many of you are not familiar with, but the reason why we need to stay stitch our fabric is so it's not going to stretch out of place. So a lot of woven fabrics, because we talked about how things are woven together, could end up getting saggy or looking a little off. So the stay stitching is going to allow it to stay in place. And we finally get onto the sewing machine with this step. I'm going to take my front of skirt piece, it's nicely labeled, and we're going to come up to the top section where we're going to sew from this point to the pin. And then Anna's going to help me do this, and we're going to go sew from the other side to the pin. And that is how we're going to complete a stay stitch for both our front of skirt and back of skirt pieces. Okay? So we're going to come on over to the sewing machine. Alright, so I'm here over at the sewing machine. I'm going to put my fabric underneath the presser foot and put down my presser foot lever. It's matched up against my seam guide, that blue tape. And we are going to use that 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm just going to go ahead and you step on the pedal. And when I get to the pin, I'm going to stop and I'm going to turn my machine off and take it out. Anna, how do you feel about doing the other side? Want to give it a whirl? Alright, let's go ahead. I'm going to put you in the driver's seat and you can go ahead and get to stay stitching. Okay, Anna, you are now over at the sewing machine and we are going to flip our skirt around. So what we have to do to make sure we're going to go in the correct direction for stay stitching is the wrong side of the fabric needs to be facing up, whereas before it was the right side of the fabric. You go ahead and bring this underneath the presser foot. Make sure it's right against that piece of tape. Okay, so Anna, you're just going to go ahead, straight stitch, no back stitch, right to the pin, okay?
Okay.
Great. And stop. Alright. You can go ahead and turn the machine off. Okay, so Anna has helped complete our first stay stitch on the front of our skirt fabric piece. And we're going to go ahead and get to the back of our skirt, okay? Okay, Anna has completed a stay stitch on both the front of the skirt and the back of the skirt. We're going to just take a moment to de-thread these little thready bits along the top just to clean it up. And we're going to go ahead and get ready for the next step. Alright, step 11, sewing the front of skirt to the back of skirt. So we have our 2 pieces out, and the way we're going to put them together is they need to be right sides facing together. Alright, so that means we're going to take our front of skirt and we're going to flip it over, because what we want to do is have the pretty sides, or the nice sides, looking at one another. Just like this. It's going to look inside out. And in sewing, it's often the way we need to make our projects so that all your stitching is on the inside. Let's match up. I'm going to have Anna match up your side. And the way we know our sides are getting are matching up, you want to take your notches along the side seam over here. So we have our notches right here. and make sure they're matching up as close as possible. Sometimes it's not perfect, and that's okay. You just want to make sure it has it's not way off. You doing okay, Anna? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're going to get ready to pin it together, okay? So we're going to go and grab our pin cushion and pin the sides of our skirt together. So Anna, what I like to do is I like to pinch the fabric and push the pin through, just like that. And again, you don't need them right on top, so maybe about a hand span away. I like to have the plastic ball head of the pin sticking out, so when you sew, you don't accidentally poke yourself. Great. All right, so we're gonna flip it around and do our other side. And bring it up. There you go. Great. So about 4 pins should be fine, and we're gonna go now to our sewing machine. Okay, we have Miss Anna over at the sewing machine. We're going to come on over and take a look. We need to change our seam allowance to 5/8 of an inch. So we're just going to lift off the tape and move it over ever so slightly. And this is to make sure your skirt's going to fit properly. All right, so we move that over. I like to start with our right side of our skirt. And that way, when we're getting ready to sew the other side, we're just going to flip it around. So we're going to start with the right side of our skirt. Anna's going to set it up against the seam allowance. She's going to back stitch at the beginning and the end for this part. Okay, so Anna, you can go ahead and sew our sides. Let's turn the... And when we get to a pin, we want to make sure we stop and take it out. All right. Anna, we got our side seam together, so our skirt is starting to stick. We're going to go ahead and trim the thread and get ready to sew our other side. This time we're going to flip it. So again, everything needs to go off to the left-hand side of the sewing machine. So I flipped it, and we're going to go ahead and do the same exact thing we just did. So lift up your needle. There you go. All right, and set that up. Make sure you take your pin. Yep. Excellent. We have another side seam sewed up. Say that 5 times fast. We're going to trim off those extra threads, and we now have something that almost looks like a skirt. Again, it's going to look a little big, but we're going to get that elastic in there, and it's going to be just fine. All right, ready for the next step. Step 12, press your side seams. So Miss Anna has sewed our side seams. Our skirt almost looks like a skirt. And what we want to do is make sure these seams are nice and flat, so it's going to wear well. All right, Anna, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the skirt, and it's like a big tube. We're going to place it over the nose of the ironing board, okay? So one side is underneath the ironing board, the other side is on top, on the flat surface. And I'm going to have you go ahead and pick up the iron. And what we need to do is press open the seam, the flap. They kind of stick up right now. And Anna's going to take the nose of the iron, and she's going to come right on over here and begin to press. So you don't want to drag it. You just want to press it. Dragging it could really make it crumply. Okay. All right, Anna, I'm going to have you stop there for a second. don't be afraid to use your fingers to help press everything out flat. And if you don't have an ironing board, you can use your hands and do that, the same thing, and it will hold. Not as well as an iron, but it will hold. Okay, let's go ahead and get that end. Great, and you're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Press the seam open, and then we're gonna be ready to move on to the next step. Step 13, sew your casing. Anna, we have our casing pieces out on the table, our 2 pieces. And what we're going to do first when we want to get ready to sew is put our right sides together. So if you remember, that's the pretty sides facing one another. So I'm going to have you go ahead, take the top one, bring it down. Nope, just the way it is.
Oh, okay.
We're going to flip it over, just like that. And what do you think we need to match up?
The notches.
Yes. Great. Looks like our top 2 match, our bottom, and our sides. Wonderful. I'm going to have you place 2 pins on our sides, okay? And you want your pins to have the ball heads of the pin facing out. So we're just going to go ahead and push those in, okay? We are pinned, and we're going to go ahead and get ready to sew in the sewing machine.
Okay.
For sewing our casing, Anna has our machine. We have our pin casing pieces, and we're going to go ahead and put it underneath our presser foot. Keep your 5/8 inch seam allowance, the one that you use to sew your side seams of your skirt front and back. So Anna, I'm going to have you go ahead and set that up. You can put your presser foot down. You're going to take your pin out. You can hand that to me. And you're going to just sew that short little side seam.
Okay.
Great, so Anna has completed her first side. We're going to go ahead and flip it to the other side and do the exact same thing. All right, so we've made a giant, like a headband for a giant. This is going to be our casing that's going to go around the top of our skirt. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to attach it. All right, step 14, we're going to prepare to sew our casing. So we made our loop, which is our waistband or the casing of our skirt. We have our iron out and, well, our ironing board and our iron. And we're going to go ahead and loop it around the nose of the iron. So we're going to turn it, the wrong side is facing out to put it on the iron. But before we do that, we want to make sure the tape comes off. Don't want to iron that accidentally. All right, so Anna, I'm going to give that to you. We're going to find the side seam and loop it right around here. We set our iron for our fabric setting. So Anna, I'm going to have you grab that. And I'm pressing the seam open just like we did with our side seams of our skirt. I'm going to have you come just with the nose in this direction and give it a good press. Great. That looks good. I'm going to loop it to the other side and do the exact same thing. Bravo, nice and flat. Okay, so we're gonna go and take this off of the ironing board, and we're actually going to turn this so the wrong side is facing out, and we're gonna fold it down and match up our notches. We're gonna bring that all the way around. Match our notches over here. And Anna, I'm going to have you get the iron ready.
Ready?
Ready. Okay, stop. Okay, so Anna's pressed this part. We have to rotate it around the ironing board so we can get the entire loop folded down. Okay, Anna went all the way around her casing, so it's folded and it's ready to be attached to our skirt pieces. So we have our skirt and we have our casing, and what we want to do is we want to turn our skirt so the right sides of the fabric are now facing out. So we're flipping it, just like if our clothing, if it was inside out. We're going to shake it for a moment. I'm going to remove that pin that was in our skirt between our notches. So if you have the pins still left in there, we're going to go ahead and take those out. And now the casing is going to match up to the side seams. That's the first place I want to go to try to meet the band, so it goes around the top of our skirt. So you can see right here, I have my side seam of my skirt, and I have the side seam of my casing, and I'm going to match it up right here. We're going to take a pin. I place my pin going in vertically. I want the ball head, the plastic ball at the top of the pin, to be sticking up. So we got our first pin in place. So Anna, I'm going to have you, let's see, we're going to come around to the other side. We're going to find that side seam right here, match it up, and pin that in place. We want to make sure the casing is actually going to fit all the way around the skirt, so we are going to make sure by pinning the entire casing to the skirt. Okay? So we're going to just go maybe every like 3 or 4 inches and place a pin. If you're finding things are not fitting, you might need to do a little stretching, or if there's a problem with your seam allowance, you might need to go back and re-sew. We are also going to make sure our notches match up. So we have a notch here and a notch here. It looks like we have a good match. I'm going to have you wait a second. Okay. And we're going to come over here to this other notch. There you go. Match that up. So Anna, I'm going to have you, let's just make sure, work our way around. Let's go right over here. Let's put a pin right here. Right. And everything is looking like it's falling into place. Okay. So we actually have this pinned all the way around. And what I want to do is specify on one side a starting and stopping point that we're actually going to leave unsewn so we can put our elastic in. So we have 2 safety pins. We're going to take the safety pins and we're going to put them about 1 inch, give or take. You can even use like the top of your knuckle to give you a sense of about 1 inch away from each side of the side seam. Doesn't matter which side, you can choose. So we're going to go ahead, maybe about 1 inch, place our safety pin like so. And this is just going to give us a really solid way of seeing where to start and stop. I'm going to take my other safety pin, open it up, another inch or so, pin it in, and we are ready to attach this. All right, let's get back to the sewing machine. All right, step 15, we are going to sew the casing to the skirt. I know you're getting excited. All right, so Anna's over here at the sewing machine again. Anna, I'm actually going to remove the storage compartment on our sewing machine. What that's going to allow us to do, since our skirt is in the round, we want to have something to go around. It's going to be a little easier. What we need to do is start on the safety pin on the right-hand side, and that way we're going to be able to work our way back to the other safety pin and leave that about inch or so opening. And that's going to allow us to put in the elastic, which will be coming up in the next step. Okay, so we're going to keep our 5/8 inch seam allowance. Anna is on the correct stitches. We're going to put the needle up. Put that right under there. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the pin. There we go. Okay, you can put that down. And Anna, what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to help you with this. We're going to remove the pins as we go. You really just want to make sure you're keeping everything nice and straight in front of you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Go on your marks. Get set. Go. Okay, looks like Anna has made it all the way to our other safety pin. So we're going to stop there. We need to make sure we take the safety pin out. So we're a little close on this side. I'm going to lift this up. We're going to just unpin it. Anna's going to go ahead and do a quick little back stitch. Great. So Anna's going to take the skirt out from underneath the sewing machine. Cut that. And we're going to check. It looks like everything's attached, but what I like to do is just go around and double check to make sure that casing is all the way on there, okay? If you have any holes, just go back and put it under the machine and resew. We do have one opening, if you remember. That's going to be where we're going to put our elastic in. You ready to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Step 16, let's put the elastic in your casing. You need to have your safety pins that we were using before as markers to help us put the elastic into our casing. We also need elastic. And the elastic needs to make sure it fits around whomever is going to be wearing the skirt. If it's you, my recommendation is to have somebody to help you measure the elastic so you can get a good, proper measurement. Since the skirt's not for me, it's for Anna, I'm going to help Anna measure the elastic around her waist, okay? So Anna's going to be standing here. I'm going to put the elastic around her body. I'm going to just pull it out right about her waist here, and we're going to stretch it so it feels a little tight, but not too tight. So Anna's going to tell me, does that feel too tight? Okay.
It feels okay.
It feels okay. All right, so I'm going to overlap. I'm going to have you turn a little this way, Anna. I'm going to overlap the elastic by about 1 inch. That way, when we're sewing it, it has something to catch onto. So I'm placing my finger right here where I want to make my cut. I'm now going to let go, and I know where I want to cut my elastic. So we know my elastic is a little bit longer than we want it to be. So I'm going to bring it right here. I'm just using my hands. Don't need anything really other than that. I'm going to make my cut. And now we know the elastic is going to fit Anna properly. We're going to go ahead and pin the elastic and the safety pin. So we're going to open up the safety pin. And it's going to attach on one end. It doesn't matter which end. They're both pretty much the same. While Anna is doing that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the other safety pin. And I'm going to attach it to the opening, the bottom part of the skirt right here, right by the opening of our casing. And Anna has the elastic and the safety pin attached. And we're going to go ahead and fish this through the casing. Okay? This is going to be a little shuffle of the elastic through the casing. All right? So I'm going to take this end over here. I'm going to insert it. I'm a righty, so I'm going to go towards the right direction. It's a little easier for me to do that. Again, it's a matter of preference. What you want to make sure you do is go all the way around your skirt, so you're going to come back out the other side.
Yep.
Okay? So here I go. Into the casing I go. It's like a tunnel. He's a tunneling piece of elastic. And what we need to do is, so here's the shuffle, everybody, okay? We're going to go push, push, pull, push, push, pull, push, push, pull, until we get back to the other side. We made it full circle around our casing. You can see the safety pin that was being fished through the casing tunnel is out on the other side, and the pinned piece of the elastic is still attached. So what we're going to go ahead and do is unpin the 2 safety pins. Just make sure you hold on to them for a moment. You don't want them to actually get sucked back into the casing. Unpin those, hand those to Anna. And what we want to do now is we want to make sure we sew these 2 pieces together so your elastic will actually hold up. We're going to do that inch overlap. We want to make sure nothing is twisted. So I'm just going to go. You can see it gets a little bunched around the top because the elastic is smaller than your casing, which is a good thing. All right. We seem to be okay. Nothing is twisted. I'm going to pull the elastic away from the casing. This is going to give us that room we need to sew it under the sewing machine. I'm going to grab a safety pin from Miss Anna again. Maybe not grab. Anna. We're going to open up the safety pin. I'm going to pin it right in the middle. And now our pieces are technically attached, but we're going to go ahead and get over to the sewing machine to sew on the sides that will hold it together. While we were getting our sewing machine set up, I did have Anna go ahead and try her skirt on. We recommend that you guys do that before you fully commit to sewing your elastic together. If it feels loose or too tight, you can go ahead and make those adjustments now. And Anna said it was all good. That means we're ready to sew our elastic together. What I recommend is we're not going to use the seam allowance for the elastic. We want to just make sure we're going to capture each end that's not attached. I'm going to remove the safety pin and hold it with my finger for a moment. And we already pulled it away from our skirt, so there's room to get it under the sewing machine. Move the elastic a little bit. Okay. So Anna's going to go ahead and do a couple of forward and backward stitches so it really adheres to the elastic sides. So they really are sewn together very well. Okay? I'm going to have you go ahead and do that. Okay, so Anna did that a couple of times. She's going to lift up her presser foot. We're going to pull that out away from the machine. And we're going to go ahead and do the same exact thing to the other side that is not attached. So you can see this is still floating around out there. Okay? Anna, we're going to go ahead and get this back under the machine. Okay, good. We want to make sure it's really secure because obviously it's going to be stretching. So you don't want it to come undone. I'm going to snip some of those threads out of the way. And Anna, I'm going to give you your skirt. And you're going to go ahead and pull the casing. You see how it's real crunched up right now? Pull it so the elastic will kind of go right into it. Just gently, there you go, kind of pull the gathering around. And it should just go ahead and slide right into the casing. Great. All right. Looks like everything fits really well in our casing, but we do still have this little opening here. So we're going to go ahead and sew the casing to the skirt so everything is fully attached. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we need to go ahead and attach the casing to our skirt. It's flipped up right now. You can see there's a big old opening there. That's not going to look very good. So I actually will need to flip the casing down to have the right sides facing one another. And the cut edge of the skirt and the casing are now sticking up. And Miss Anna, I'm going to have you hand me a pin. So I know I'm going to start about an inch away from the opening so I can see my stitching right here. And place a pin there. I'm going to place a pin right at the side seam. And a pin again about an inch away. Great. So now we know everything's matched up and the line that we need to sew to get this all attached. So we're going to go ahead and head back to the sewing machine. All right, Anna's back to the sewing machine. She set up her skirt with her casing and she went back to the 5/8 inch seam allowance, and that's what's going to be your seam allowance to connect that section. All right, Anna, you can go ahead. We'll do a back stitch at the beginning and end, and we should be fully connected. Okay, Anna has closed that opening. Let's take a moment to de-thread. It's like giving it a haircut. Get that all out of the way. And you ready?
Yeah.
We're going to flip that casing up. Make sure it's fully attached. And come all the way over. Always give it a little pull. Just make sure there are no little holes or openings are hiding in there. And I think we've done it. Our casing is on, elastic is in. I think this is gonna stay on. So we have a couple little finishing techniques. So we're gonna go ahead and talk to you about that in the next step. Step 17, sew your hem. It's almost the end. We get to sew your hem. We're gonna turn our skirt to the wrong side facing out. And Anna over here is over sitting at the sewing machine. We're going to do a machine-based stitch. That's going to help give us a line to follow when we need to press the hem at the bottom. Since the skirt is not a straight line, it has a little bit of a curve, it makes it a little tricky. So Anna, I'm going to have you change our stitch length to 4 on our machine. If your machine doesn't have that number, you really want to go to the longest stitch length that you can go to. Alright, so the other thing we want to mention is our seam allowance now is going to change to about 1/4 inch, and that means the edge of the fabric is going to go against the edge. I'm going to have you bring your hand over here, Anna. The edge of the presser foot, so it's going to match up right along here. Okay? Anna, here is our skirt. We're going to put it right on under the presser foot. Make sure the fabric is matched up. Right at the edge. Pretty good, right? So Anna is about to go on a pretty long sewing drive. You are going to follow the edge of the skirt all the way from the beginning back to the beginning, basically. All right, you don't even have to worry about a back stitch when doing this. You just need to get that line in there to help you hem your skirt. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, Anna. Have a good drive. Anna has done a great job. She made it all the way around the bottom edge of her skirt. All the way around. And we have set up our ironing board and our iron again because we are now ready to take and press up the bottom cut edge of the fabric so we can start creating our hem. We have the wrong side of the fabric facing up, so it goes to the inside. So when we're done, it's all going to be hidden. So Anna, I have you standing on this side. I'm going to hand you the iron, and I'm going to help you. Again, this is a great time if you have somebody to assist you to work with them to get the edges all pressed all the way around the skirt. Okay, so Anna, you can go ahead. Really get that iron on there. Well, friends, I have some good news and maybe some maybe less good news, but not bad news. Anna just went around and pressed the bottom hem. We're going to have to do it again. And what that will look like is keeping your fabric on the ironing board and taking your fold that's already been created and doing the fold one more time. And what that is doing, you can see our edge is folded and really nice and smooth. It looks much nicer than this frayed cut edge. And it also will make sure that your skirt does not come undone, so it doesn't unravel. It's important. So Anna's going to go ahead and start ironing. The fold is just about that 1/4 inch that we've been doing. Now we're start right over here. We're going to press. And as we press this time, really get it on there. I'm going to lift that up. I'll have you stop for a second, Anna. We're going to stick a pin just to make sure everything's being held down. Okay? So every, about hands width apart, you're going to go ahead and stick a pin after you get that second fold. Okay, Anna, you can go ahead. Stop there. Anna has done it. We made it all the way around our skirt with our double roll. Our hem is up, and we're going to bring it over to the sewing machine so we can go ahead and lock it down. Okay, this is really almost our last step, I promise. All right, Anna, if you remember, we had the basting stitch on our machine, so we need to change our stitch length back to 2.5. All right, we're going to go ahead and put this underneath our presser foot. We're going to have the presser foot edge against the folded edge of our hem. So Anna, you can go ahead and put the lever down, and you're going to follow right along. Let's get our needle into the fabric. There you go. And you're going to just kind of pull on your fabric as you sew. You want a little bit of a stretch to it. Okay, that's going to keep everything nice and flat. And Anna, you can backstitch and head all the way around back to the beginning. Okay?
Okay.
Go for it. Step 18, finishing your skirt. You did it. And we have our skirt here all laid out. There's a couple little loose ends that we have to take care of. Get it? Loose ends. We're going to go ahead and remove the tape. I don't think you really need to wear your skirt with any tape on it. So go ahead and peel that off. I think we have some tape on the back. Just going to inspect it. Beautiful. All right. If you're worried about not knowing your front or your back, you can always purchase labels, get some fancy labels that you made something. You can always make a little mark with like a fabric marker on the side that's the front or the back. Sometimes a little stitch. So if you are worried not knowing the front or back, you can always label it to make sure you have an idea of it. But I think we're good for now. And we're also going to take a look around our skirt for extra threads. It might be the look you're going for, most likely not. So take a pair of scissors and just give it a little snip. I'll put it in my thread pocket. And snip around. The other thing we want to make sure is our skirt is nice, smooth, and wrinkle-free. And I'm going to have you go ahead and press your skirt with the iron that's set up on the ironing board. We have the top here and it goes around the bottom, so we only have one layer to press. So just go ahead and push and lift like we've been doing. That way we don't get any wrinkles or crinkles as we do it. And we're going to continue to rotate it around. And this is a great opportunity for you to inspect to make sure everything looks good. No holes, no extra loose threads, nothing looks bunched or crinkly. Great. And if everything's looking good, you can go ahead and try it on. Anna, congratulations. You've completed the Roxy skirt. Do you love it?
I do.
You worked so hard on it, and I know all of you out there have also worked so hard on your Roxy skirt. We would love for you to share with us what you've created. You can check out our social media sites and see, so we can see all the hard work that you have done. And hopefully you'll join us on sewing with us again. Thanks so much.